If you check the provincial records for November 2021, the atmospheric river event in the Fraser Valley is mostly remembered for the Sumas Prairie flooding and the highway washouts. What never made the regional press releases was an unincorporated settlement called Upper Cheam Basin, about 14 kilometers past the end of the paved logging road north of Agassiz. It wasn't a recognized town, just 42 permanent residents, 8 registered civic addresses, and an old community hall. I was the regional district's assistant emergency coordinator on night watch at the operations desk in Chilliwack. At 3:47 a.m., the telemetry panel on my second monitor blinked yellow, then went flat gray. It was Station 4B, an automated river gauge positioned above the basin on a tributary of the Fraser. The gauge didn't spike or report a dangerous flow rate. The data stream simply severed. Under normal protocol, that's just a wet battery terminal or a fallen branch taking out a solar array. We had 4 other crews already dealing with culvert overflows near Hope, and dispatch was jammed. The duty log shows I flagged it as an instrument fault at 3:52 a.m. I picked up the dedicated landline to call the volunteer caretaker at the Basin Hall, a retired mechanic named Keith who checked the manual river board whenever telemetry acted up. The line didn't ring. It gave the fast, busy tone immediately, which meant the local fiber loop was cut somewhere down the logging main. Our backup protocol was a satellite transponder installed on the hall's roof 2 years prior. I pinged the terminal code into our terminal. It responded with an error code, unregistered unit. That was the first bureaucratic mistake. The invoice for the activation package had been sitting in the regional district's infrastructure queue for 8 months, waiting on a director's signature. The dish was bolted to the roof, but it had never actually been provisioned with the network provider because the main road was already closed at the highway junction due to localized pooling. I took our department's 4-wheel drive diesel truck to inspect the access gate myself. The rain was coming down in sheets, so thick the wipers were smearing water instead of clearing it. About 6 kilometers in, near the old bridge crossing, I saw something that made me pull hard on the emergency brake. The yellow metal height clearance sign for the bridge approach wasn't overhead. It was sticking out of black water at eye level right next to my driver's side mirror. The road didn't end in mud. It just vanished under a flat, completely motionless sheet of dark water. I got out with the searchlight. The water wasn't churning or moving like river runoff. It was dead calm. I climbed up the gravel embankment on foot to the crest that overlooks the lower bowl where the houses sat. When my light swept the valley floor, there were no rooftops. There were no porch lights. There was no sound except the rain hitting my hard hat. The entire basin had turned into an artificial lake nearly 30 feet deep. A natural debris dam from an old logging clear-cut upstream must have given way all at once, backfilling the hollow before anyone could step outside. What kept me standing on that ridge in the cold wasn't the water. It was the silence. A flood that sighs makes noise. People try to start trucks. They leave their headlights on. They fire off flares or set off horns. Even during the worst residential washouts along the Coquihalla, there was always some sign of an active response. A generator running, a light in an attic window, an abandoned vehicle with its hazard lights flashing on a gravel bar. Here, there was nothing. I keyed my VHF radio back to Chilliwack Dispatch to declare a catastrophic municipal event. The radio speaker gave 3 hollow clicks, then static. The regional repeater on Mount Woodside had failed 3 minutes earlier when a backup generator flooded. It took 4 days for the water to drain naturally through the lower gravel beds after the storm cleared. Search and rescue, out of hope, brought in flat bottom, jet boats, dogs, and side-scan sonar. The Provincial Ministry of Transportation brought excavators to clear the access route. The water had left 4 inches of fine gray silt over the remaining foundations. Most of the modular homes had been shifted off their concrete blocks and rested against the western tree line, but their structures were largely intact. The front doors of 7 homes were locked from the inside. Their pickup trucks were parked in their gravel driveways, keys in the ignitions, dashboards dry, completely untouched. Inside the hall, the coffee urn was half full on the counter, plugged into an outlet that had shorted out days before. Over 12 days of intensive grid searches, the teams turned over every square meter of silt, dredged the river outlet, and swept the entire perimeter, forest up to the rock faces. They never recovered a single body. They didn't find clothing caught in the brush, footprints in the mud above the flood line, or any trace of 34 people leaving the valley on foot. The official provincial report, filed 6 months later, listed the incident under localized hydrologic failure with an unresolved demographic outcome. It cited the uncommissioned satellite transceiver as a significant procedural oversight, which led to policy revisions across all regional districts. The case was quietly closed for administrative purposes. Every now and then, I look at the old dispatch log sheet from that shift. At 3:45 a.m., 2 minutes before the sensor went dark, the automated river board had logged a 3-second drop in water level before the cutoff. That means the river didn't rush in first. Something else caused the water to hold back just long enough for everyone down there to step out of their houses without their keys.